In today's episode of Floorplan Feedback, we are looking at a build in Melbourne. Udam sent in his floor plan. Let's check it out. Today, we have Udam's floor plan from Melbourne. Udam reached out to me with the message, "Hey Jem, huge fan of your work. We have been following your channel since 2023 and absolutely love your work. We are based in Victoria and have started building our first home to live in. Just finished watching your new video and my wife wanted to reach out to you and check if you could have a look at our floor plan when it's ready. We understand things are a lot different in Victoria compared to WA, but was hoping if you could run your eyes over it and share some feedback. Let us know. If not, we still love your work and have made a lot of changes and inclusions like two professionals who know how building works from the knowledge we gathered by watching your videos." So this is the best part of my day when I receive such positive feedback like this. I absolutely love it. And today we will try to provide some feedback on Udam's floor plan. Some of the information he's shared is the land size is 14 meters wide by 28 meters deep, so it's 392 square meters. The main entrance is facing north. We have a bowel rating of 12.5. The build is a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom with a theatre and 2-car garage. This is a very custom build done through a volume builder. What we're going to focus on today is we're not going to try to reinvent the whole floor plan because that's not the point. The point of these videos is to really help as a final checkpoint before signing off on plans. And if there are any minor details that we can improve on or questions that we can ask, then we can ask now. Before we get stuck into the exact design, this is a plan that is for a Melbourne property. The R codes will be slightly different, the regulations will be different, the construction techniques will be slightly different. So our main focus is going to be on space, dimensions, and of course, orientation. Let's start with the garage. The first thing we're going to look at is the garage. The garage is 6 meters in depth, which is great. It's going to leave at least 400 millimeters on this back wall for some storage racks. So the first question we want to ask is this door to the backyard essential? On a lot of our plans, we will have access to the backyard from a side gate, and this door might not need to be there. It's not even about the cost of having that door, it's about what you could do with this space instead. So I actually installed this door on my dad's build and it hardly ever gets used. If we need access to the backyard, we've got it through the side gate here. And all this does is it covers up a bit of area that we can use for storage. So if I were to design dad's home again, which I am, I'm actually going to get rid of this door. It's not needed. The other thing I would look at doing is this shopper's entry door into the main part of the home. I would try to push it down this way about between 400 and 700 mil. That way we can actually put storage racking all along the back part of the garage if we need to. Again, it's not a big change, but if you are looking to have some storage in the garage, it just makes it a little bit easier and you get a bit more room out of it. If you're worried about space with the door opening into the garage, we can just swing the door into the corridor and actually swing it in towards the kitchen. So those are the few questions I would ask before proceeding with the garage. Let's move on to the main entryway. All right, so we've got the main entryway here. Something that I really like about this entryway is that we've got a wider section in the landing zone. So a lot of the time with these standard builds, you're going to see the corridor just straight through all the way to the main entry. Having this wider landing zone just means that it's going to feel a lot more comfortable as you enter the home. Second of all, you have a bit of an area here for a drop zone. So in my dad's house, he's got some shoes here. You might have a stool. It just gives you a little bit more options for what you can do with the space. And we've also got the entry into the master suite here as well. So really, really happy with that. And then I can see we've got some bulkheads here separating these spaces, which is going to be a really nice touch as well. So from here, let's move on to the master bedroom. So the master bedroom is quite standard in its layout. So we've got bed 1 at the front with an ensuite and walk-in robe. with space being so limited, there's not too much else I could recommend in terms of the configuration. We've got cavity sliders to the ensuite. We've got quite a large shower recess, which is great, and lots of bench space. I can't really recommend any changes here. I think you'll be happy with it. And like I said, with the limited space that you do have, there's not too much else we could do to really optimize it. Moving on to the kitchen. So this is something that I would query. So we've got the cavity slider to the walk-in pantry, and I'm assuming it's to try and make access from the garage to the pantry a little bit easier. If this were my home, I would get rid of that door. I would just have that enclosed, and this is going to give you the option to either have more storage space. Even if you don't use it as storage, I think it's going to feel a little bit nicer having this closed off. Being able to walk the whole way through the kitchen and the walk-in pantry like this, I don't think it's going to give you the feel that you want. I understand it from a convenience point of view, but having to walk just a little bit further to get to the pantry, I don't think is a big problem. So if it were me, I would look at closing off that completely, but again, up to you. The kitchen's quite functional, so we've got lots of bench space, and for the amount of room we have, sinks and dishwasher in the scullery section, which I like, means that you can do all of your cleaning up here. And then we've got our main cooking and preparation area up here as well. So again, this is a limited space. The only thing that I would mention is that if you did want to have a breakfast bar on the kitchen side here, we would need a little bit more of an overhang, and that means that you're going to have to increase the width of your kitchen island. If you're not willing to do that, completely understand, but just be aware that the amount of overhang you have here is not going to be enough to have stools to be comfortably seated at the bar or breakfast bar with this amount of overhang. Okay, moving on to the lounge. So with the lounge, I think the location of it is great. I do like having the lounge coming off the kitchen. If you've got kids that you need to keep an eye on, it's a lot easier. And having it near the garage means that it's really further away from your minor bedrooms. So location-wise, I think it's fantastic. The only thing that I'm going to mention is that we have these two cavity sliders either side of the entry point of the lounge. With the amount of wall depth we have on the right-hand side, this isn't going to be quite enough to completely cover whatever couch you're going to put on this side of the lounge. That's okay. It just means that this cavity slider on the right-hand side is going to be predominantly either left a little bit more closed, or you're just going to see the end of the couch if you do have a full width couch going into this lounge. Now, with the limited width that you do have, I think you've configured it well. You don't really have enough wall space on this side to even put a bigger cavity slider to then get rid of the one on the right. So I completely understand why it's been configured this way. Just something to note, if you haven't selected your lounge yet or your furniture yet, just bear in mind the dimensions of the depth of this wall before you purchase something. Let's move on to family and meals. This is a really, really similar layout to what I actually had in my dad's place. So we've got family, dining and kitchen here. So in my dad's house, we actually have the theater in the same location as well, and that's where his TV lives. If you are planning to have two TVs, then you really need to consider how this room is going to be furnished. What I actually did with my dad's build is I reconfigured the windows to this wall to allow for one wider wall, which will then become the TV wall. The couch goes here and then the TV goes here. So luckily you do have enough width to put a TV here if that was the goal. And the other reason is you can't really put a couch on this side because that's going to block the access to the Alfresco. So whenever we're looking at these designs, a lot of builders will either put no furniture into their plans. Now this is a working drawing, so obviously there's not going to be furniture drawn into this. But when you're at that sketching stage and you're at the design stage, if you are not getting furniture placed into your sketches, you need to make sure that if you have existing furniture you're planning to move into the home, you need to start thinking about, okay, where is that piece of furniture going to go? How is it going to fit? And is it actually going to work with what we want to do? Because the last thing you want to do is build a home, move all your furniture in, and then start figuring out where things are going to go. A second point to that is a lot of builders are putting furniture into their sketches from a standard template, and this furniture can be quite small to make the home look bigger, one. And number two, in displayer homes, all of the furniture is slightly smaller than what you might see in real family homes. So this is just something that is important to consider while designing the home, because at the end of the day, furniture is going to move in there and you want to make sure that it's got a home for it. Moving on to the minor section of the home. So there's not too much to report in beds 2, 3, and 4. Okay, we've got lots of linen space, lots of storage space. We've got a powder room opposite of our bathroom. Nothing too drastic going on here. I think you've configured it well. It's a good use of space. There's no wasted space, and I'm sure you'll be quite happy with the result. So nothing else to report. Moving on to the Alfresco. So we've got our Alfresco here. We've maximized the glazing and we've got a small Alfresco on the bottom left-hand side. Now we do have our north point on this side. West is here, east is here. So we have our family Alfresco meals all facing east, which is ideal. Unfortunately, with a lot of these lots, we don't get to choose the orientation. We just have to do the best we can with what we've got. So in a perfect world, our Alfresco would be in the northeast corner. We want to have a majority of our big windows facing north. If we can't do that, then we want to have them facing east. And we want to make sure that we are avoiding having the main sleeping quarters facing west. If we can do that, then we're one step ahead. So just before I finish off with this floor plan, I actually, looking at it now, it is so similar to the design I did for my dad in Henleybrook. I really like having the kitchen, family and dining stacked with the Alfresco this way. It just means that you've got a really nice flow of the home. Every time I visit Dad's home and I walk through the main passageway and enter this space, there's so much depth of view. I really am a big fan of the layout. It's very efficient for trying to achieve a 4x2 with a theatre. The theatre is in a really smart location as well. And of course, a lot of families do want to have the bed one at the front, so it ticks a lot of the boxes. With a few minor changes just for the storage and potentially, the lounge, you could look at optimizing it a little bit. Personally, the only big change I would make is getting rid of this access point here into the pantry. But overall, I think it's fantastic design, no wasted space, and I'm sure Udam's going to be really happy living in this new home. Guys, if you would like my input on your floor plans, I'll leave you a link in the description below. Otherwise, I'll see you next week. This is the thing that we're trying to achieve with the channel is there's lots of builder pages and Facebook groups, and a lot of the time people now are having to post anonymously because there's all these builder reps on these pages absolutely shredding every single floor plan that becomes available because, I don't know, that maybe they get a kick out of it, but that's not helpful to anyone. I think doing a feedback when it's done properly, if it's a good plan, say it's a good plan, point out the strengths of it. And that way, yeah, sometimes there's not going to be any issues with it. And it's the same thing when you hire an independent building inspector. Your hope isn't that they're going to find faults in your home. Your hope is that it's going to say everything's done brilliantly and your builder's great and tick, that's it. You're paying for that peace of mind. You're not paying for criticism. And I think that's why the best building inspectors are the ones that are very honest, and they're not just coming up with problems to justify their own job. And that's exactly what I'm doing here. If a floor plan is good and doesn't really need any changes, that could be the whole video, because in a lot of the cases, it has been done well by an experienced consultant. That's what you're paying for. You're paying for the peace of mind. In cases like this, it might be 1 or 2 points. And in other cases, I might even say that you need to start from scratch. So a good floor plan review doesn't necessarily mean that there are going to be things wrong with it. It just means that you're going to have more confidence leading to construction.